start with what just happened over the past 62 minutes on The View. And it's not even one of my wacky View clips for you where we just make fun of Sunny or Joy. I mean, we love those. But this is like legit Joe Biden, who's on, well, you guys will tell me what he's doing here. And I'll tell you what Mark Halperin says. He's on some sort of a rehabilitation tour. Well, okay. Anyway, he goes on to The View, and it wasn't rehabilitative at all.
What do you get when you mix Joe Biden mumbling through another teleprompter tragedy with The View hosts pretending it's fine? A glorious meltdown. And Megyn Kelly just brought a flamethrower. Buckle up, because today we're diving into the epic roast session where Megyn doesn't just clap back, she claps everyone. From Biden's senior moments to Joy Bahar's brain fog, this is the circus you didn't know you needed. Trust me, you won't believe who she roasted first.
I've noticed that Trump can't stop talking about you. He's obsessed with you. As of late April, he had mentioned you and your family and your administration at least 580 times. We're talking shrink land now, because, you know, when you're obsessed with somebody, you have to look in yourself and say, what is going on here? And at his Trump's cabinet meeting last week, your name was invoked 52 times, and he blamed you for the economic mess that his tariffs are causing. Why is he so fixated on you and blaming you for everything?
I beat him.
It was a perfectly average Tuesday. Birds chirping, coffee brewing, and somewhere in America, Whoopi Goldberg was once again committing a felony against common sense. Enter Joe Biden, the man, the myth, the walking teleprompter disaster. Naturally, The View decided it was the perfect moment to haul out their decorative ferns, cackle and sink like a malfunctioning laugh track, and pretend this wasn't a train wreck with a smoke trail so thick it set off the studio sprinklers.
Here's a little bit more. Speaking of those around him who covered up his infirmity, or at least that's where my mind went, Dr. Jill was there too, and as usual, came to the rescue. Watch SOT 38.
What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that, number one. Number two, you know, think
this
of
is about the books.
What we're left with. We're left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started.
The people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president.
She says none of these people writing the books worked for us. Well, one of the first to have his book hit interviewed Ron Klain, who was Joe Biden's chief of staff for almost all of his presidency. And he went on the record saying that Biden thought he was president of NATO. Where was that follow-up, ladies of The View? I must have missed it.
Now, imagine this scene. Biden waddles onto the set like your confused grandpa who wandered into a high school play, while the hosts of The View erupt in applause so forced you could hear their contracts whispering, "Please don't get fired." It was supposed to be a heartwarming presidential appearance. What we got was bingo night meets bad improv, with a splash of denial so potent it could power Joy Bahar's flat iron.
He could barely spit it out.
And he threw that one out there too. My goodness.
He and Obama are two peas in a pod on this. Sexism and racism, if you didn't vote for her. That's obviously what she thinks too. But the nerve of this guy of all people to come out and say that's why she lost.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, Megyn. You know they're putting him out there to provide proof of life because a lot of people are wondering, they hadn't seen him in a while. But at some point in every person's life, you go from rehab to palliative care. And he is definitely in the palliative care category right now.
But don't worry, America's favorite, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed media assassin, Megyn Kelly, watched this glitter-coated debacle unfold with a level of disdain reserved for soggy toast and TikTok life coaches. And oh, did she have thoughts. In fact, Megyn didn't just critique the episode, she torched it, lit the set on fire, roasted the teleprompter, and salted the earth where the cue cards once lay.
Oh, they asked him about that. They asked him about that moment. Watch this, SOT 36.
When the vice president was here, I asked her if she would have done something differently than your administration over the past 4 years. And because of all the successes that your administration had, I think her response was, there is not a thing that comes to mind. Now, that answer was weaponized against her. And there has been some reporting that you encouraged her for...
Because let's be honest, watching The View navigate a Joe Biden appearance is like asking a group of drunk raccoons to host the Olympics. The bar is so low it's underground, and yet they still manage to trip over it. Every nod, every chuckle, every pre-approved softball question lobbed at Biden like they were tossing marshmallows at a bear. They all reeked of desperation wrapped in glitter tape.
Hello?
Did that clear it up for you?
I mean,
you have clarity on it now?
That gerbil is having a hard time spinning the wheel. That is about as torturous as I've ever seen.
It was torturous, and on Sunny's part too. There, like
yes.
She is trying to hand this off to Biden, and hopefully he can take it from there, right? Like okay, she wants to straight face tell us that what the question was, like what sort of wins would you have changed? Like that's an actual question you would ask a person. It doesn't make any logical sense.
She didn't just roast it, she marinated it in disdain, slow cooked it in righteous contempt, and served it on a silver platter of, how are these women still employed? Megyn Kelly didn't need cue cards or a makeup team whispering affirmations in her ear. She came armed with functioning brain cells and the radical concept of basic logic. Watching her break it down was like seeing someone solve a Rubik's Cube while everyone else was busy licking the stickers. She dissected The View's cringe fest with the precision of a neurosurgeon and the joy of someone who's been waiting for this train wreck since the moment someone handed Whoopi a producer credit. The View tried to sell the Biden appearance as a triumph, the way toddlers proudly present finger paintings that look like abstract renditions of gastrointestinal distress. But Megyn Kelly saw through the glitter glue and called it for what it was: political necromancy, with The View hosts holding the seance. She didn't just torch them, she lit up their whole set like it was sponsored by the California wildfire season. The level of delusion was so intense, you half expected the show to be sponsored by a pharmaceutical company specializing in denial. And through it all, Megyn stood tall, not literally because she was seated, but spiritually, like a lighthouse in a storm of caffeinated confusion.
Yeah. What the hell was he talking about, by the way? He was like, I've never seen such an effective, like, misogynistic campaign. What the hell? Like, that's actually a first take. I mean, I know that Democrats say, well, it's because the country is misogynistic and racist and all those things. But, like, he's pointing the finger basically at the Trump campaign, saying that they had, like, this. Well, I mean, if you go back to, like, the ad slate of the messaging matrix that the Trump administration put together in the course of that campaign, it was immigration, it was crime, it was the horrible economy. I mean, none of these things are gender specific. Right.
Because here's the truth. The View didn't interview Joe Biden. They babysat him. They spoon-fed him sanitized questions designed to be less offensive than hotel oatmeal, and cheered when he managed to complete a sentence without referring to someone as corn pop. It was a celebration of mediocrity so loud, even the ghost of Walter Cronkite filed a noise complaint. And Megyn? She came in swinging like she was training for a heavyweight match against gaslighting. Her commentary wasn't just biting, it had teeth, claws, and a personal vendetta against every poorly concealed cue card behind the cameras. She pointed out, not so gently, that watching The View pretend everything was fine during Biden's malfunctioning speech parade was like watching a family pretend their Thanksgiving turkey didn't just explode in the oven. This wasn't journalism. It was fan fiction written by a committee. A group therapy session where the hosts held hands and tried to manifest a reality where Biden was coherent, the economy was thriving, and their show still mattered. Spoiler alert, none of that happened.
It was so insane the way that she's like beyond effusive of being like, so here's the thing, because of your record of tremendous successes, dear leader. Like, what? Right. Are you asking him a question?
Like, Joe Biden, tell us your greatest weakness.
And you know what? You know what's so amazing?
You know
what was so amazing about it, you guys, is that so here she's like, I am not going to make the same mistake twice. You know, I already fucked up Kamala Harris's run for the office. And I am not going to do anything to undermine this guy. So I'm just going to give him the answer in the question. Like, you know, and so she declined to distinguish any of her policies from all the ones that you did so successfully. What's your reaction to that? Right? So she's trying to give him the softball like that.
Right.
And then he has no idea what she has said. Like,
And what did Megyn do with all this? She dismantled it like a reality TV judge watching someone try to bake a cake using mayonnaise and prayer. She took apart the faux empowerment, the choreographed chuckles, the faux shock gasps when Biden forgot who he was speaking to, and then she lit it on fire for good measure. The best part? Megyn wasn't even angry. She was surgical, clinical, the way a really classy executioner in a three-piece suit might explain your sentence before pressing the button. Her commentary sliced through the show's smug aura like a steak knife through tofu, and she didn't stop with the performance. She went for the throat of the entire premise of The View. Because at the end of the day, The View is less a talk show and more of a group hallucination sponsored by reheated liberal talking points and unchecked ego. Every episode is a masterclass in cognitive dissonance, where logical fallacies go to breed and die. Megyn had no time for it. She pointed out the obvious. When you platform an ex-president who can barely navigate basic sentences and then act like he's delivering the Gettysburg Address, you're not doing journalism. You're doing interpretive fiction. And not the fun kind, more like the kind written on cocktail napkins during a 3-day bender.
Can't interview him for a job as a cameraman, but
we are beyond happy to have you here for today for a lot of different reasons. But my question is, how are you? How you doing?
I'm well. The family's well, thank God. Things are moving along, and we're getting squared away, trying to figure out what the most significant and consequential role I can play consistent with what I've done in the past. I'm writing another book.
And it wasn't just Biden's performance Megyn dissected, it was the hosts themselves. Whoopi Goldberg, now functioning solely as a kind of spiritual medium for delusion, nodded along to Biden's incoherent tangents like she was receiving divine wisdom through a clogged earbud. Megyn compared the display to a church revival led by a malfunctioning animatronic. And just when you thought it couldn't spiral further into absurdist performance art, there came Sunny. Sunny, whose expressions flickered between concerned citizen and law school PowerPoint fatigue. According to Megyn, Sunny's idea of journalistic integrity looked like it was cribbed from a fortune cookie that had been run over by a Prius. The mental gymnastics Sunny performed trying to justify Biden's fourth self-contradiction in 2 minutes was so intense you half expected her to come out with an Olympic medal and a chiropractor. Then there was Alyssa, the human LinkedIn profile, nodding solemnly like she was auditioning to be the voice of reason in a house full of talking toasters. Megyn called it what it was, a group therapy session for people allergic to honesty, with Alyssa playing the role of the intern desperately trying to remember everyone's name. Each of her comments landed with the impact of a Post-it note being tossed into a hurricane, unnoticed and ultimately irrelevant. But Megyn wasn't just irritated. She was in awe, like watching a cult documentary in real time, only with less conviction and more bronzer. She pointed out that if political denial were a sport, the ladies of The View would have already swept the Olympics, the Paralympics, and probably the Puppy Bowl. The amount of energy expended explaining why Biden blinking slowly wasn't cause for alarm could have powered the Eastern Seaboard during a blackout. And then came the wardrobe choices. Megyn didn't hold back. She couldn't help but mention how the hosts dressed like someone had raided a discount cruise ship costume trunk in the dark. It was like every outfit screamed, "I'm relevant," while whispering, "I've lost a bet." There was a particularly delightful jab about how their fashion decisions seemed inspired by Pinterest boards created by people who think sequins are a personality trait. Megyn even dissected their table arrangement. Yes, the literal table. She joked that it looked less like a talk show setup and more like a high-stakes round table for people who were about to vote on which color of denial they'd wear next week.
That hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections, 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera. Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern with them.
The physical formation screamed diplomacy, while the conversation smacked of infomercial for the world's most confused political party. And you could tell Megyn was having the time of her life doing it. She didn't so much critique The View as she performed an autopsy on it while twirling, with jazz hands. Every observation was served with a side of snark and garnished with just enough exasperation to let you know she was genuinely baffled by how this show still exists outside of satire. And just when you thought she was done, Megyn cranked the sarcasm dial to 11 and reached into the very soul of absurdity. She took aim at the alternate dimension where The View resides, where applause lines are written before the conversation even begins, and facts are only accepted if they've been properly bathed in emotional outrage and sealed with a tear from Joy Behar. It's a realm where being loud is the same as being right, and where critical thinking gets checked at the door along with common sense and shame. Megyn, ever the connoisseur of chaos, dissected the entire setup like it was a poorly written soap opera masquerading as journalism. She pointed out how The View has mastered the art of building echo chambers so airtight they could survive re-entry from space. Dissent isn't just discouraged, it's treated like an act of terrorism.
And then you get this little lecture from, forgive me, those bitches over at The View.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. Well, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday. That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never he was looking out for me, but not those monsters. Right. It's no, he was.
Try suggesting nuance or asking a tough question, and you'll be excommunicated faster than you can say teleprompter malfunction. She likened the panel to a team of backup dancers auditioning for relevance. Their choreography, synchronized outrage and jazz hands of judgment. Their soundtrack, a loop of buzzwords and virtue signals performed over the faint hum of self-congratulation. It's not a show. It's an interpretive dance about feelings masquerading as analysis. In Megyn's world, watching The View try to tackle real political issues is like watching a group of toddlers try to defuse a bomb with finger paint and glitter. It's explosive, confusing, and guaranteed to make you question your faith in humanity. But the genius of Megyn's takedown wasn't just in the critique, it was in the surgical precision with which she dismantled their entire charade, all while keeping a straight face and a raised eyebrow that could slice through steel. Because at the end of the day, what Megyn Kelly really exposed wasn't just the train wreck of a presidential appearance, it was the slow-motion car crash that is The View itself. A place where common sense goes to die, where complexity is flattened into slogans, and where every opinion is measured not by its merit, but by the decibel level of the applause it receives. And Megyn? She didn't just light a match, she brought the flamethrower. She's not coming to the pity party. She's already RSVP'd with a flamethrower and a checklist of every contradiction they tried to gloss over. In the aftermath, fans of The View clung to their pearls, shocked that someone would dare criticize their cackling coven. But the rest of us? We laughed. We laughed because someone finally said what we've all been thinking. The View is less a television show and more a support group for people who think Googling once makes them experts. Megyn Kelly, patron saint of zero tolerance for nonsense, didn't just torch The View. She power washed it, sandblasted the glitter, and painted over it with a big neon sign that reads, "Try harder." So next time Biden shuffles onto a talk show set looking like he mistook it for a deli counter and the hosts of The View break out into synchronized praise dancing, remember one thing. Somewhere out there, Megyn Kelly is sharpening her wit and preparing the next verbal eulogy for whatever remains of their credibility. And honestly, we're all better for it.
And it's time for Lefties Losing It.